part of finding stories to cover is that there are just so many people who have disappeared from this earth, and there are endless choices to pick from. Some people appear to have been kidnapped, some walked away. Others have been found deceased, but because of limitations of law enforcement at the time, were never identified with their actual name. This is especially true of people who disappeared in the 80s or earlier. Our first case is one of those. Regina Marie Rowell. Regina disappeared from Metairie, Louisiana on March 10, 1981. Her family has a Facebook page dedicated to finding her, and the pain of not knowing what happened to her has stopped them from being able to move on fully. That's one of the most important things to remember about cases like this. Not knowing what happened is probably the worst fate. Regina was just 20 when she disappeared, and she was working full-time at the VA Medical Center in New Orleans. Regina showed no signs of being suicidal, but because her car was found running near the Huey P. Long Bridge with her purse and belongings inside, the police decided that is what happened. The disturbing part of this case is that the police immediately concluded she jumped, and it appears they did not even try to locate her body at all in the water. Those that knew her best at the time, all 5 of her siblings, were adamant they saw no signs of her being suicidal, and not one of them believed she would willingly take her own life. There is actually zero indication it was Regina who parked her car on that bridge that fateful day. Her siblings would find out later that not one question was asked. Despite it being a warm spring day, and many people being located on the bridge, not one witness was asked about who parked the car, much less if anyone was seen jumping in. Not only were there no police reports taken at the time, there was zero investigation. They didn't even have a record of who called in the report of the car being found on the bridge. There was zero analysis done of the car to try to confirm who drove it there, or if there was any kind of a scuffle inside. Due to the lack of police response, there was no one looking for her body, and there was no news coverage at all at the time. Which would, of course, at the time mean that anyone who saw anything would have no idea that they saw anything of importance and would not come forward. It was a complete failure on the part of the police. Sadly, when it comes to many of the unsolved cases, this seems to be a common thread. As a result, her family has suffered in silence through the years, never knowing if their sister committed suicide or what happened to her. Eventually, Regina was declared dead in 1987. Then, something shocking happened in 2012. A tip was called into Crime Stoppers in May of that year. The police were only able to give the family limited details because they did not want to compromise the investigation. The person who called in the tip was adamant that there was a crime committed against Regina and that she did not jump from the bridge, which is supported by the fact that her body was never found. The family later announced on 9/12/2020 that the Jefferson Parish Office opened up an investigation into her disappearance, but there is no information readily available. It appears a key clue that is missing is the person who called in the tip. If that person could step forward again, even anonymously, it might make all the difference in finally figuring out what happened to Regina and perhaps giving her family some closure. A cold case detective initiated an investigation, including DNA swabs of all the siblings as well as Regina's father. He also met with the family to discuss the case. There is some indication that the police did go ahead and interview people who knew Regina. Her family also asked that more people who knew her step forward, people she may have worked with or friends of hers. They may have details they do not know are important. This is a difficult case because memories fade and there was no investigation done initially, but it is entirely possible that it could be solved if the right people come forward and give information. Her family can be contacted through the Facebook page What Happened to Regina Rowell. After 40 years, the family deserves to know what happened to Regina. If you have any information at all, please call the number on your screen. Another woman missing from the same vicinity is Vicki Carrier. Vicki disappeared 7 years after Regina from the same general area. Vicki was last seen in her hometown of Wagaman, Louisiana on July 12, 1987, around 5 p.m. in the evening. At the time of her disappearance, she was 18 years old and she worked full-time at the Avondale shipyard. She was also nearly 9 months pregnant. Her baby was due in just 2 weeks. There's only limited information available, but it appears she had all of her clothing in the car with her. There is no clear indication of her relationship between her and her boyfriend at the time, although there is speculation that the relationship was troubled and she was moving all of her belongings home to be with her mother. On the day that she and her boyfriend, Joseph Phillips, stopped at the Time Saver, which is now known as the Easy Serve, on River Road. According to Phillips, he went into the store, leaving Vicki to wait for him in the car. He claimed that when he came out of the store, the car was still there, but Vicki and all of her clothing were missing. She was supposed to arrive at a home on Azalea Drive shortly thereafter, but she never arrived. She was never seen or heard from again. Her boyfriend has long been considered a suspect in this case. Police tried to make him take a polygraph test about his involvement in her disappearance. However, he refused to do this. Eventually, he passed away in 2002. Her parents recently made a plea on a digital news station that someone come forward to say what happened to Vicki. So far, this has not happened.
Carriere's body has never been found. Her parents believe she was murdered, but hold a glimmer of hope that maybe she is still alive.
Every day, I keep on looking. It doesn't matter. Well, my baby. This is our life. This is our change. We are missing her. It's not a complete circle without you, child.
No one knows what happened to Vicki or her baby. If you have any information at all, please call the number on your screen. Joyce Marie Kennedy. Joyce is our third Louisiana case for the day. She often gets little acknowledgement because her details are scarce, but I wanted to include her. All it takes with any of these cases is one person who knows something to break it wide open, perhaps with information they didn't even know they had. In the case of Joyce, the 32-year-old went missing on July 9th, 1992. The circumstances are unclear. The Doe Network reports that Joyce Marie Kennedy was seen last getting into a black car. There's a report that she told a friend she intended to travel to Burris, Louisiana, but there is no information as to why or who she planned to visit with. At the time of her disappearance, Joyce stood 5'5" and weighed 120 pounds. She had black hair and brown eyes. She reportedly had a tattoo of the name Joyce on her left arm. If she is still alive, she would be 60 today. If you have any idea at all what happened to her, please contact the number on your screen. Thanks as always for listening. I'm still struggling with trying to get my channel to show up in search results. If you haven't yet, please hit subscribe. Please take care of yourselves and each other.